Hey, welcome back to the channel. My name is Steve Peterson, and these are my Hyundai Velosters. We're diving right back into the engine teardown today. I'm not going to waste a whole lot of time. Today we're removing the timing cover, or the front cover of this engine. I'm going to run through it pretty quick. Basically just show you what bolts need to be removed and in what order, and how to separate the case off of the engine. I'm not going to get into messing with removing any of the timing chains or anything like that today. We're strictly just removing the front timing cover of the engine. I'll go through some things that you need to be careful with and what tools you're going to need to complete this. If you are watching this video and you do not already know how to remove the valve cover of the engine, I recommend you stop, go back, watch my video about the removal of the valve cover. Once you finish that, pop back over here and then you'll be ready to pull the timing cover. Now that I got you guys zoomed in here on the side of the engine where the timing cover or the front cover is, I'm going to explain to you real quick what needs to be removed, what can be left alone, and some important steps that you need to take with regards to timing the engine. You want to make sure there's some things that are lined up before you start taking covers and stuff off. Especially before you start taking timing chains and things like that off, if you end up or need to go that far to do your repair. First of all, I do recommend that you have a cordless drill or a pneumatic impact of some sort. An impact will help you with removing the bolt here on the crank pulley. Getting that bolt out without an impact is quite the challenge, so that's going to make your life a lot easier, either cordless or pneumatic. Next, we are removing the crank pulley, the water pump pulley, the idler pulley here, this engine mount, and the AC compressor can stay on. You don't need to remove the AC compressor. The 4 bolts that hold the pulley onto the water pump are 10 mil. You've got the bolt here for the idler pulley, which is a 14. You've got the 4 bolts that hold this piece of the engine mount on. Those are also 14s. 22 millimeter here on the crank pulley bolt. And then there are 3 12 millimeter bolts here for the cover. The rest around the whole cover are going to be all 10 millimeter bolts. So that makes things nice and easy. Before I start removing anything, I want to make sure that I have lined up my timing marks on my phasers and that my cylinder 1 piston is at top dead center. The intake valves, if you have your intake manifold off, you should be able to look in and your intake valves for cylinder 1 will be closed. The piston will be at the top of the cylinder, and there are 2 marks on the sides of the phasers that will point towards each other. And then finally, there's this tiny little tick mark here on the outside of the crank pulley that will line up here on your timing marks on the outside of the case. You're going to want to make sure you rotate, manually rotate, take your 22 millimeter wrench and manually rotate the engine around until you are at top dead center with cylinder 1. That is important because once you get this timing cover off, you don't know where exactly your timing mark is here. I suppose you could still put it in time once the cover is off because you'll be able to see where the marks are and the paint marks are in the chain, but you're going to be cranking the engine around forever to get all the timing marks to line up that way. This way is for sure, you take the cover off, everything's going to be in time. When it goes back together, everything's going to be in time. 10 mil. And something to keep the pulley from turning here. They are all different lengths, so it's important to kind of keep track of where you are pulling them out of as you go around and remove them all out of the engine. So you can see, basically I have all the bolts where they go wrapped all the way around. The other thing you can do is take a picture or just kind of keep them in order on your table, whatever you want to do. I found that this always works for me. You kind of can't mess it up. I mean, you can see everything goes exactly where it's supposed to go. In order to remove the water pump, I recommend a pry bar. There is a small little tab that you can put a pry bar under and break the water pump or separate the water pump from the case, just like so. You're going to want to put a pan underneath there because there is apparently still coolant in there. Did not know that. Still a little bit in there anyway. There we go. Save some of it anyway. Water pump's actually still good on this engine, so I'm going to save this water pump and put that in the parts pile. Alright, coolant strained out of there now. Next step will be to separate the cover off the case. Now, there's a couple things that Hyundai has done to help you with removing the cover from the case. It is siliconed on, so it's going to be a little hard to separate. However, if you look down here next to the guide pins for the cover, and then also next down here to this guide pin, there is another hole where you will be able to screw M6 bolts in, and as you screw those bolts in, it's going to press against the case. It's actually going to pull the cover away from the case for you, which helps significantly when it comes to trying to get the case to separate away from the block. Basically, you're going to screw these bolts in until they stop, until they get tight, and you will see as you screw these bolts in, it will actually separate the case from the block for you. So there's not going to be a whole lot of fighting and prying involved with getting the case off. You need to be slow and careful once it gets tight. You don't want to damage anything. But if you do it right, very little prying is going to be front cover. So we now have our timing chain assembly here. We got your phasers, your chain, your two guides, and a tensioner. To remove all of this, I'm going to put that in a separate video. We're going to get into removing our timing assembly, a couple final things to take off the engine, and finally I'll be removing the head here off this engine. Well guys, that is how you remove the front cover or the timing cover off of the 1.6 liter Hyundai Veloster engine. The timing cover for the turbo and non-turbo model are basically exactly the same, as well as the valve cover removal. The intake manifold is dang near exactly the same between the non-turbo and turbo models as well. So hopefully this helps everybody. Our next step will be removing timing assembly and removing the head off this block and getting it prepped so that I can put it on this car. Thanks for watching. Hit that subscribe button. Find me on all social media at Steve the Woody Peterson. See you next time.